Welcome to the 39th episode of the Daft Previews podcast. Today we're going to do what we do. We're going to fill you up with our best bets. We're going to talk a whole lot of shit. But if you're here for my best bets, I got 4 of these motherfuckers for you. The very first one's under 39.5 points in the South Bulldogs game. We're looking at Cronulla to score more than 14.5 points. The Sydney Roosters to cover a 14.5 line. The Parramatta Eels to score over 13.5 points. Those total odds, you're getting $13.37. Before I hand it over to my man Luke, just a shameless plug. Follow your boy on Dabble, Instagram, Facebook. Join the Discord if you want to get every tip. Last weekend alone, I pulled over $2,000 in profits in the NRL, and every tip was shared. Every tip was shared to our members of the Discord, so jump in and get amongst it. Luke, what best bets have you got for us this week?
All right, I got 4 best bets. So I went 2-2 last week. I think I got cucked by a referee in the Para game personally, but I've got Dogs and Souths on Good Friday to go under 39.5. St. George and Newcastle, two of the shitter teams going around at under 37.5. Melbourne minus 6.5 on Saturday against the Sharks. And then on Easter Monday, I'm backing the Tigers to score over 9.5 points. Put it in a multi, play them as singles as well. $13 as a multi, $1.90 legs at tab.
Let's cash it in. So the tab, I'm using tab as well. Let's see if we can take a lot of money off those motherfuckers this weekend. Speaking of this weekend, we've got quite a few games kicking off on Thursday evening. It's the Canberra Raiders versus the North Queensland Cowboys. They're facing off at GIO Stadium at 7:50 p.m. Canberra Raiders are the favourites at $1.55. The Cowboys at $2.45. The line on this one is 4.5 points. If you're looking at totals, it's 39.5 points. Looking at the team list for the Cowboys, Hammer's still out, but the good news, Scott Drinkwater's on. I thought he was a great addition. It only took him a few weeks to get him going, but I do like Drinkwater in that fullback position. For the Raiders, they are back at home where they do happen to perform a little bit better. There's question marks around Matt Tomoko. Copped a knee to the back against the Storm, so there's a very small chance that Jared Croker slots in at the centers. And for the Cowboys, Cohen Hess is back. Ruben Cotter goes back to the bench, but very much a very similar team. Look, this is a very difficult one for me to choose. I honestly couldn't tell you which way it goes. I normally lean towards the Cowboys because I usually back against the Raiders. The Cowboys have been pretty impressed with their form so far this year, but the Canberra Raiders do play much better at home. They do have wins over the Sharks and the Titans so far this season. The Cowboys are 1-1 on the road. They beat Brisbane, but they also lost to the Warriors by 1 last week. For me personally, I'm choosing not to add this to one of my bets, but if I had to, gun to my head, dick to the side of my mouth, whatever the threat is, I would lean towards the Cowboys to cover, but that's just to prevent the dick from going in my mouth. But what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, tough game to pick because both teams, if you look at the two teams, Canberra looked amazing week 1 beating the Sharks now, and Cowboys have looked impressive at some points, but both teams have been pretty ordinary as of recent. Cowboys at home against the Warriors went down. The Raiders just on the road just suck. They're a horrible team. So I'm, again, avoiding gun, dicks, fists, everything, knives, you name it, to my face. In a round, I'm probably, if I had to put a bet on, I'm steering away from it. But you take on blue bet minus 3.5 Canberra because I think it's going to be that close of a game. It's 4.5 on most bookies. You can get 3.5 on blue bet and take the Raiders to cover the line. I wouldn't put the Raiders head to head in a multi because they could fuck you over. So Canberra minus 3.5. I think they've probably got just enough to beat the Cowboys, which it wouldn't be too cold, but it'd be starting to get cold in Canberra at this time of year compared to what they're used to up in far north Queensland. So,
yeah, that's a good point. So I guess we agree the smart play here is not to bet on it.
Yeah.
But being an absolute degenerate, game day, I certainly will. I'm sure I'll put some same game multi, which I'll only share in the Discord, potentially on Double as well. But the smart play is to avoid that one. All right? That's for all you degens. Just avoid it. Fuck. Maybe have a look at the AFL. I got no idea. But that Thursday night game, difficult one to tip. On Friday, it's a public holiday. Yes. It is. It's going to be a good Friday. Kicking off at 4 p.m. It's the Rabbitohs versus the Bulldogs. So looking at the team lists, Blake Taft steps in. Latrell Mitchell is out. Looking at about 8 weeks for that dodgy hamstring. For the Bulldogs, Kyle Flanagan. He got his first start last week. He's been retained. I do like what he did bring to the Dogs. I guess that game against Penrith, I was heavily biased because I think Penrith was my last leg for a massive multi, which came home very nicely. But taking my Penrith glasses off, I did like what he brought to the Dogs. He was pretty steady. Their forwards were quite strong. They just really couldn't use whatever strike that they have outside. The Fox remained scoreless. He hasn't even gotten close, to be honest.
He did. He made that line break and set up that try down the
Yeah,
sideline.
but he was never going to score that himself.
No. But you thought when he was doing it, he might, he hasn't scored. That's 5 games. Do you go, I'm going to just go myself here and have a crack, instead of going the easy pass back down the middle?
Yeah. I think it's because of his haircut. He honestly needs a haircut. But looking more at this game, South favourites at $1.28. Dogs at $3.75. The line is 10.5 points. Total match points, we're looking at 39.5. We've both gone unders in this one.
Yeah.
And we've done it with some confidence. What are your thoughts on it? Why are we so hot on the unders?
I always think this game historically has always been a great game. Like no matter where they are on the ladder, it's always been like a good game. And if you go to last year, South did blow them off the park, but they only scored 38-0, right? So even if they do the same again, it's half a point I'll take. But prior to that, it's been very like close games. They've stayed within a try or two. Back in 2019, it was actually even 14-6 to Canterbury. And Canterbury were terrible. Canterbury have been terrible for a long time. They were terrible in 2019, and they still won this game in 2019. So that's why I'm taking the unders. I think both teams, attacking wise, have gone backwards compared to last year. Latrell being out, yes, it's bad for goal kicking. Taft comes in, but also defensively, if you look at Latrell, he doesn't cover the ground.
Yeah.
He doesn't save tries, and yes, they don't. Fullbacks don't save multiple tries a game, but there's every time they seem to be going over in a corner. He's nowhere to be seen. There's no chance of him taking someone into touch or preventing a try. So I think defensively, Latrell at fullback's not as good either. So I think Taft coming, I know he's small, but at least he'll cover ground. Kick behind, he can chase. And I'm with you on the Dogs. They were impressive the other night. They just were not near the class of Penrith. They're still a work in progress, but Flanagan did bring a lot more straightness in their attack, and they ran a bit more direct. So I like the unders in that game purely because both teams aren't where they've been previous years. The Dogs are under a fair bit of pressure. They're expected to play better, and Souths are not even, they're not in the 8. They're not there yet. So this is a different South team. No Reynolds, no Latrell, no Gagai, no Sewer. They're starting to miss quite a fair few players. So I'll take the unders. It'll stay competitive. Even last week against the Dragons, they only scored 24 points. There's 36 points in that game. And I put Dragons and Dogs, maybe Dogs slightly weaker attacking, but defense-wise, probably similar to the Dragons at the moment. So I'd take, I like the unders in that game.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. Looking at the numbers, the Rabbitohs are averaging 16 points per game. The Dogs give up 20 points per game, but that number's blown out after the back-to-back games against Melbourne and Penrith. So in reality, excluding those two, they're only giving up about 16. The Dogs only average 8 points a game. The Rabbitohs allow 16. So, if the Dogs go overs, they probably score 12. And if the Rabbitohs do what they normally do, they probably score 18. But at the same time, no Latrell. That attack's going to be impacted. Cody Walker's moping around the field at the moment, so he doesn't have that spark that he normally does. Still yet to register a try assist. So I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think Souths win. I think they've just got a better mentality when it comes to winning, but I don't think they win easy. I don't think there's a big blowout, and I'm very confident that they go under this 39.5 points. The Dogs have every reason to play hard. They're a chance to win this game.
Yeah.
Their forward pack is strong. Their 7 is solid. Burden's getting a little bit better. Dufty is absolutely awful, but he doesn't stop tries. It just means Bulldogs probably won't score as many. Addo-Carr hasn't scored yet. Averillo's playing the centres. He's not doing anything out there. I can see the unders in that one, and I'm quite confident in saying so.
Last year when it was 38-0, Reynolds did kick 7 from 7 that day as well. So
Yeah.
you're asking, and the prior they didn't play obviously the year before because of COVID. The Easter game wasn't played then. Then you go back to 2019, it was 14-6, and Mr. Greg Inglis was in that team, the South had. So they had a very good team back then, only scored 16. So I think we're on a good one there.
Yeah, we'll take that one. I think that line will drop closer to the game.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the main event of the round.
Of the year. Of the year.
Of the year. If it was at Suncorp, I would say it is the of the year, but this one unfortunately isn't. So 7:55 on Friday evening at Bluebet Stadium in the heart of Penrith. It's the Penrith Panthers versus competition heavyweights, the Brisbane Broncos. All the talk in this game is about Brisbane. Payne Haas got his shoes stomped. He's copped a 1-game suspension and a fine. Can you believe that Payne Haas got double the fine that Albert Kelly got?
did. That's mind-boggling when Albert Kelly was pissed and being the pest.
Yeah,
that's like encouraging the alcoholic to get off lighter than the sober one. Like,
yeah. So
does Albert Kelly also serve that while he's injured?
No, they need to confirm when he's healthy to return, whether it's around 21, and then he'll serve his suspension. But I think by then,
he just do it by 2 weeks earlier? Yeah, he's ready to go, but he's not.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get a run anyway. To be honest, I think he's gonna drop down the pecking order anyway. Billy Walters has been solid. I think Tony Staggs will probably get a run at 6 before Albert Kelly does anyway. So the Broncos will be missing Payne Haas. They already have Carrigan out. Flegler seems like he's going to be suspended for most of this year. So they're our 3 best props. Our 3 best props all out for this game. It's not like Penrith are lacking in the middle either. So Corey Jensen, Reece Kennedy, a lot of pressure on those boys, and Keenan Palacio, who's a very small prop as well. Kobe Hetherington, he's probably going to make 60 tackles. Him and Turpin combined for 150 tackles, I reckon, in this game. And for Penrith, mate, as strong as ever. Same 17 for the 3rd week in a row. They're 5-0 this season, have rarely been tested. Cleary's getting better every week. Tago and May, absolute freaks. Crichton should play State of Origin now with Tommy injured. Dylan Edwards, somehow one of the best fullbacks in the game. And it's not because he's passing the ball, but he's the fittest man alive.
Yeah.
Isaiah Yeo, tied for the Dally M's. Kickout is going to go out a winner, I think, this year. Appy, very much the same. It's just it's a very scary team. And if you see the odds, Penrith is now $1.05 favourites. Broncos at $10. The line is 21.5. The totals, we're looking at 40.5 points. My Lord. Which looking at this line, I see it as quite disrespectful, to be honest. But let's kick it off with you. Have you got a play on this game?
Haven't got a play. If I always talk about Penrith at home and being defensively sound, and maybe if a team total comes up, but if the only one at the moment that really has it up is the Tab, and they've got the line for Brisbane. What would we say it was earlier?
8.5.
8.5.
Yeah.
So with Reynolds there, can Penrith keep them to 1 try, basically? That's saying, otherwise you're game enough thinking Reynolds is going to go 0-2 from kicking. I just talked about it, he kicked 7 in a row last Easter Good Friday game. So if you can get a 10.5, maybe come game day, play that, because that's the only thing I think is the line, because Penrith will win the middle, so that Brisbane aren't going to get a lot of opportunities. But Penrith are also coming off a 5-day turnaround, Brisbane with a 7-day turnaround. So Penrith aren't going to, I know they've rested some players towards the end of the game. I think Isaiah only played about 50, 60 minutes. Edwards come off early, so they are going to be a bit rested. But I would stay clear of this if I had to dick gun to the mouth again.
Yeah.
I would take the handicap, Penrith to cover the handicap. But again, that's very dangerous. It's just, 21.5. If you can get 20, I know 20.5 on Blue Bet. If you can get 19.5 maybe, but just be careful, because I think Brisbane have given it to Penrith over the years, and I talked about it last year in the podcast. And Brisbane did cover the line in the last couple of times, but it was at Suncorp. They do give Penrith a hard game. In fact, I think it was
I think we've covered the last 4 games.
Yeah, I think it was 2 games back. The line was a similar amount at Suncorp, and Brisbane were absolutely at their worst with Seabold, I think, from memory. And Penrith were absolutely flying that year. They made the grand final, lost, and Penrith only just covered it. So that was thanks to like a Cleary try at the end and a field goal. So yeah, gun to mouth, 20.5, but I would be looking for a 10.5 line for Brisbane points, and that's probably something I'd go to on game day if you can find it, for bookie releases it.
All right, sweet. Well, I don't need to be threatened by a dick in the mouth for this game because I've got some confidence with my boys. I've been wearing this shirt all day. It's it's bringing me great luck. I was victorious in my basketball game. I didn't wear this whilst I was there, but I did rock up in it, and that's really giving me the Bronco big dick energy. For this one, there was 2 players that I was looking at. One, Broncos to cover that 21.5. 21.5 is a huge line. That's massive. And it all makes sense. We've got barely any petrol in the engine room at the moment. So, but I did look at previous form against Penrith. We do like playing Penrith. It brings the best out of us for some reason. Even without these middle forwards, we're still in much better form than we have been the last few years. Last 2 games, we lost by 6 points, then we lost by 8 points. And then prior to that, we actually had a few wins against Penrith while the boys are still young. But at the same time, we haven't played Penrith in Penrith since 2016. And you need to respect Penrith's form at home.
How many wins in a row do you know it is? 19. They've won 19 straight games at Bluebet Stadium.
Yeah, I don't think any.
Seven of their last
win.
8 by 13 plus. Like it's a very daunting place to go to. So
yeah. And look, if Brisbane are the same side they were last year, if we start to fall behind, like see with the Cowboys game, if we just get overwhelmed, the floodgates could open, right? There's a real possibility of that happening. So instead of taking that 21.5, I am taking Brisbane to score 2 tries, basically. I'm taking that 8.5 while it's still 8.5. I think the Dogs scored 2 tries last week, right?
They did.
And I'm thinking if the Dogs can score them, I understand they were off kicks, but
one was a kick.
One was a kick.
A run down the side.
Yeah. So
Luai did gift him that try.
Yeah. So and Luai's a generous bloke, so hopefully he gives us one. We do have a better kicker in Adam Reynolds. Corey Oates, for some reason, has become a beast into the high ball. So we could get lucky there. Katoni Staggs and Selwyn Cobbo, they create opportunities. But Cobbo averages almost 5 errors a week.
Wow, really?
5 errors a week, and they're usually like off the back of a half break or a line break, like a forward pass. Like they throw forward passes and bomb tries every week. They did it last week.
I think the only player who gives him a run is Nanai. Nanai loves the knock on.
Oh, he's awful.
Enemy's tackle.
Yeah.
That guy's arms is a turnstile.
Yeah. He's out there for highlights. Nanai.
Yes.
But if Cobbo and Katoni can put it all together, I'm sure we can snake a try. Katoni only needs half a chance 1-on-1. He'll slither his way in there somehow. Cobbo's all effort, and Corey Oates has just become very lucky under the high ball. I don't see us scoring anything up the middle. I'm relying on a little bit of luck, some Adam Reynolds kicking, and some dynamic right side attack when we do get an opportunity. So who knows? We'll see. But that's what I'm taking. I'm taking my boys. Let's get it. Into your Slutty Saturday. Now, I need you guys to listen to this one. Slutty Saturday was the most profitable day for us on the Discord last week, and this is where I made all my profit. I think on the Saturday I did almost $5,000 in wins.
This Slutty Saturday is a little tight one. It's a little tight slut because it's only 2 games. So
it's a tight slut.
It's a tight slut. It's not loose in 3 games. So
yeah, so it's not going to be very loose. So we need to do what we can to loosen this slut up. Kicking things off at 5:30. We've got the saliva, the Vaseline. We've got whatever it takes to get this thing nice and moist for you. But at 5:30 at 4 Pines Park, Sydney, the Manly Sea Eagles versus the Gold Coast Titans. It's sure to be a cracking game because it's been difficult to tip. As we know, Manly, Turbo's out. But in better news for Manly, Morgan Harper's got COVID. So that means Cooler returns from his calf injury, and he's going to be playing in the centres. So they got some speed to burn. For the Titans, Brian Kelly returns to centre. Philip Sami shifting to the wing. And the cute little man, Corey Thompson's been dropped out. And some small changes around their bench, but pretty much a very similar 17. That seems to lose by 20 and brings it back. So the form of the Titans is absolutely dreadful. They're rocks and diamonds every single time they play. You don't get that. It's not week in, week out. It's every week. If they show you both Jekyll and Hyde, they got a team full of Peter Hickus or something going on in there. But Manly are favourites. $1.54. Gold Coast at $2.50. The line is 5.5 total points. Very much like all the other games, 40.5 points. I was going back and forth in my mind in this for a while, but what about you? Did you have an easy pick in this one? Could you find some value for the lads?
I haven't got a best bet, but there is a bet I do like, and it's when I've looked at the game closer. I think Manly covering the line's a pretty good shout. If you look at their recent weeks, their defense has actually been very good. Against Canberra, they let in the one try, and the Knights last week, they let in one try. The Dogs, it was an awful game, but they only let in 12 points, and that one was off a bomb error. And then the first two games they played, Penrith got blown off the park at Penrith, which we've just talked about, Penrith's record there. And then they played the Roosters at the SCG in round 2, and the Roosters were bouncing back off a loss. So one thing, obviously, people talk about is how awful Manly are without Turbo and attack, but the defense isn't that bad recently without him anyway. Even last year, during the end of the season when I'm missing him, they're still competitive. They just didn't have the firepower and attack, which is definitely been missing anyway with him there this year. So on that note there, I probably would take the line at -5.5 at Manly, just purely because the Titans, they can bounce back and give points. But I think a converted try is probably the way to go in that game.
I see. Yeah, I was honestly sweating on this game a little bit. I was toing and froing. The Titans, they do score points. They're capable of scoring points. So I didn't want to touch the totals. The last time these teams played, they scored 90 points together.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, this year, it's not trending that way, especially with Manly. Haven't been able to score points consistently. So the totals, it could be a 30-point game. It could be a 60-point game. So I'm just not touching that. Looking at the line, the funny thing is Gold Coast actually covered the line very well this year. A lot of their losses have only been by a few points. I think
their biggest loss is 6 points this year. So that's like, again, I'm talking against my stat.
Yeah.
But their biggest loss is 6 points. They've had 3 games with a 2-point margin, whether they won or lost, and then Para they lost by 4 at the start, and then 6 last week. So
they love a thriller.
They do.
The Titans do love a thriller. So the line for Manly, I was like, I'm a bit unsure of it. I do like Manly to win this game because Manly's playing at home. They're 2-0 at home. They haven't been convincing, but 2-0 is a lot better than their other record when they're away. Turbo's not in, but he didn't do shit for them all year anyway. Cherry Evans is on song. That boot is singing. Ola Kawatu is an absolute freak so far this year. And I do like the young guys, Kula and Tuapolotu. They've got some big dick energy, those boys. So I do like Manly to win, but because Gold Coast like to keep it tight, I'm taking Manly 1-12 and chasing that value. I think I'm going to bet $2.70 Manly 1-12.
Nice.
Because I was thinking Manly head-to-head, but it's only $1.54, and there's no value in that. I'm not going to get any praise for picking a winner here, so Manly 1-12, Gold Coast Titans to keep it tight for me. $2.70, yay. And hopefully after this game, 2 hours sets in, nice and loose, moist, dripping, ready to go for Melbourne versus Cronulla. If Paul Gallen and Cameron Smith were still on the field, this would probably be the best game to watch all weekend. Fortunately, those blokes have killed over. But at the same time, we've got some young throbbers in this one. Nico Hines, wet hair all day, 24/7, up against his old club, the Melbourne Storm. Can't wait for it. The spine of Melbourne has been playing very well. But if you notice for the spine, they haven't had a game where all 4 of them have played well at the same time.
No.
It's like they take turns where 2 of them absolutely light it up. So it's some scary things going on in that Melbourne Storm team.
Tell you what's scary. Nick,
what's scary?
Pappenhausen got 3 Dally M points last week and he ran for 70 meters.
He ran for like 2 meters in the second half.
And he scored 3 Dally M points. That's a scary thought. How the heck does he get 3 points for that and Harry Grant misses out? And yeah, it's a rant over. But yeah, fucking stupid Dally M system.
Looking at the team, it's very similar to what they put up last week. Tolman, he's on the bench. He missed last week's game due to COVID. He replaces the 200-kilo bench pressing machine, Royce Hunt. And Tyron Wishart returns on the bench for the Melbourne Storm. You probably wouldn't even notice him when he's on there. But both teams are 4-1 so far this year. Melbourne are favourites at $1.39. That big dick energy playing at home. Cronulla at $3. The line on this one is 7.5 points. The total points are a little bit lower than you see across all the other games. It's 38.5 points here on Sportsbet. What are your thoughts on this one?
It's a very tough game to predict at the moment because it's the number one defensive team up against the Melbourne Storm. So Cronulla are the best defense at the moment. They're going to Melbourne. On paper, Cronulla have been very good. But to be fair, if you look at their recent records, they were meant to win those games. They were meant to beat the Tigers last week, and I said convincingly, like I didn't understand why that line was so low. They were meant to beat Newcastle at home, and they were meant to beat the Dragons at home. They weren't meant to beat Para at their first game, but that was also their first game at the home stadium, so there was a massive crowd there. So their last three weeks, they've had games they should win, and now they're going to play. They're going to face in their real first test of the season, and that's the Melbourne Storm away, who haven't been convincing themselves against some of the big teams. If you remember Souths earlier in the season at home, the first 20 minutes, they looked like it was going to put 50 on them, and they only won by a field goal in the end. Para went down there and beat them too. But again, they're very good teams. That's a South Sydney team who did make the final last year and were basically near full strength. And that's a Parramatta team who I've tipped to make the grand final this year. So I think this is a game where I'm taking the line. It's -6.5. I think that'll be that bit classy enough for Cronulla. I think Cronulla's attack has been looking good. But I think Nico Hines and Moylan are in for a long night against Munster and Jerome Hughes. So taking the -6.5.
Let's take it. I do share the same thoughts. It's a big test. Cronulla finally get a big matchup. They've been warming up to one of these for a while. Melbourne have been getting wins, but they haven't been really playing their best. What stopped me from leaning towards Melbourne is the fact that they haven't covered the line very well this season at all. I think they've only covered it twice.
Yeah, Dogs and
Canberra.
Yes, last
Dogs
week, correct.
and Canberra.
Their last 2 weeks they've covered the line. You can look at stat that way too.
Yeah, if we want to manipulate it that way, but I did find some more interesting stats to support my argument in this one. I'm taking the Sharks to score more than 14.5 points. The thing that makes it a little bit risky is the fact that Nico Hines can't kick. He can pull chicks, crooked teeth and all, but can't kick. But I'm hoping he kicks them over this week.
He's kicked down in Melbourne a lot, so it's probably the ground's kicked out the most. So hopefully that carries over.
He's got experience kicking in Melbourne. But that 14.5 points, reason being we've got the Cronulla Sharks. They average 25 points a game so far this season. Melbourne give up 15 points per game, which is pretty much in line with this line. But the Sharks are much better than a lot of the other teams that Melbourne have played.
Yeah.
Souths weren't absolutely singing. They scored all their points in the last 10, 15 minutes of that game, I think. That was a low-scoring game, but they gave up 16 points to the Tigers. They gave up like 28 points against Para. I'm not saying Cronulla dropped 20 on the Storm, but I think they can cover that 14.5 points. So I'm taking the Sharks, but it's going to be difficult because I seem to root for the Storm whenever I'm watching it, and I've been betting against the Sharks all year. So I'm going to be a little bit conflicted. But you know, when I see value, your boy's got to take it. So
absolutely.
That'll wrap up your slutty Saturday. Hopefully, after all that action, you're feeling a bit seedy on a Sunday. If you're a local in Sydney, head to the SCG, the Sydney Cricket Ground, because at 2 p.m, the Sydney Roosters take on the New Zealand Warriors. For this one, the Roosters are heavy favourites at $1.18. The Warriors are $5. The line on this one's 14.5. Total match points are 40.5 points. Looking at the team list, Siwa Takiaho has been named to return. I usually butcher his name, but I nailed that one.
You did well. I butcher that every time.
Sam Verrills, he's come back. He's set to play his first NRL game of the season. I think Drew Hutchison's the main omission, so Sam Verrills will be sharing that spot with Connor. For the Warriors, Jack Murchie's out. Great name. Don't see him make too much of an impact on the field, but I do like his name. Elise Katoa, he's on the bench. DWZ, he comes under the wing. Marcelo, he's copped 4 weeks of the homophobic slur towards Kyle Feldt. Did you hear that, by the way?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't hear it. Can you tell me what did he say? Was it
He
just
said, "Get up, you bunch of sticks."
what's wrong with that?
Bunch of sticks translates to another word, F word.
Yeah, but come on, 4 weeks.
Yeah, well, they're trying to stamp it out. He could have called him anything. He said, "Get up, you cat." Just called it a cat.
Yeah,
Like that would have been even funnier. But that's the problem with the old referee mics because that's what was picked up. It was a penalty, and what happens when it's a penalty is the broadcast crews switch on the ref's mic so you can hear the ref saying what's the penalty for. Whereas if it was going in regular gameplay, you might not have picked it up. But he blew a penalty and switched them. The Fox League switched the mics on, which then caught him calling it out as it happened. Yeah, so
you cheeky bastard.
yeah.
Well, he's got 4 weeks, but Dallin's in. And if you do like your try scorers, he's usually good value. If you can get him over $2, it might be worth a lick. But I am taking a line bet on this one. Have you got a bet on this one, or are you choosing to avoid it?
I'm steering clear. Just it's tough. The Roosters, I thought have been very patchy this season. I still can't get a form line on them. Last 2 weeks ago, I was talking myself into saying they're not the team that everyone thinks they are. Then they'll come out and put a clinic on. And then last week, I thought for sure they're playing the Broncos. That'd be an easy cover. And they just won. So it's hard to pick with the Roosters because, yeah, they went up to Queensland Country Bank Stadium against the Cowboys and put on a clinic and then went to Suncorp against an equally level opposition and really struggled to defend. So I'm going to steer clear of this game. I think Verrills is going to be a big in for them at hooker. Might bring some stability into that team, but it's the Warriors again, and I had the Warriors. I had unders in that game, the Cowboys Warriors last week, and that exploded at the end. Sorry, I had unders in the Broncos game, and that exploded. So I can't trust either team at the moment. I just can't get over the fact that Dallin Watini-Zelezniak captained the National New Zealand Rugby League team, and he can't get in this New Zealand Warriors team unless there's someone making homophobic slurs. So for that there, I will steer clear. Again, gun, penis, anything to my face. I would take the overs. I think the SCG is, especially when it's dry, it's a bit of a hard deck and that ball moves quick and it's a fast ground. And I could see, the Roosters doing the same thing last week, scoring 24 and conceding 20. So I would take the overs.
Taking the overs. All right, cool. Well, no dick to the mouth required for me. I've got some confidence for my selection. I've made a promise to myself this year that I'm not going to keep backing the Warriors blindly just because they've got cute players. I'm not going to make those decisions anymore. I was a little bit shallow when it came to the Warriors last year. So I've had to use a little bit more logic on this one. I'm taking the Roosters to cover these 14.5 points purely because it is being played at the SCG. The last 2 games that they've played against the Warriors at the SCG, they've got a 20-point win and a 36-point win. What we saw last week, honestly, I think the Broncos got a bit lucky with the tries. We did bash them up the middle for the first 15 minutes, but after that 20-minute mark, I could see that the Roosters were going to come back. As soon as Angus Crichton got on, we got destroyed up the middle. And they're going to keep bringing him off the bench as an impact player, and he's bloody changing things. So I do like the Roosters to give it to the Warriors. The Warriors, they got that 1-point win last week, but I didn't feel that they played too well. If anything, the Cowboys gave it to them, gave that win up. So, I do like it to be a high-scoring game. I do believe there's going to be some tries, provided it's a nice dry track. Luke Keary's still not playing very well, and neither is Sam Walker. Teddy's been quiet as well. So they slowly...
Suwali is named on the reserves. If he comes in for Kevin Aguama, I'll feel a lot more confident because Kevin Aguama last week was shambles.
Yes. Yeah. Corey Oates, he's unstoppable, really. So, but I'm liking the Roosters to cover that 14.5. I think there's going to be a lot of points to get Seedy Sunday kicked off. But to wrap things up at 4:00 on this Seedy Sunday, we see the St. George Illawarra Dragons versus Newcastle Knights. It's probably a game that I don't really want to watch, to be honest. Like, as a rugby league purist, it's like I'll watch it, but I'll probably go to the pub and watch it. Like, I'll probably put more effort focusing on my chicken snitty with mushroom sauce than I will on this game. But looking at the Dragons team, the one-eyed bandit, Josh McGuire, he's been named to return. Tyrell's back from another suspension. So both of these boys, one of them's going to get suspended again, I'm sure.
The Bash Brothers.
The Bash Brothers. Josh Kerr, he's been promoted. Aaron Woods back to the bench. George Burgess is in. Like, everybody knows who these players are, but none of them are playing well. None of them are on the right side of their prime either. For the Knights, Big Clem Dog, he's named to make an early return from an injury. Jacob Saifidi's on the bench. And your mate, Edric Lee, makes his return on the wing following a foot injury. He replaces Dominic Young, who actually started this year off playing quite well. But both of these teams started this year off playing quite well, and they've been terrible as of late. I think we agreed we could forgive the Dragons a little bit for it because the 4 games that they've lost, they're all supposed to lose, right? Who are the 4 teams that they had to take on?
Yeah, so they started off against Penrith in round 2, and then they played the Sharks, Para, South. So
yeah,
they're playing the 4 teams they played will be in the top 8. So they weren't slouches by any means.
So tough titties for the Dragons. So given that, I think the bookies have caught on. They've given them a little bit of slack. Newcastle have lost games they should have won. The Dragons are $1.65, Newcastle $2.25. The line is 2.5 points, and the total points in this one is 38.5. So bookies aren't predicting as many points in this game in comparison to the others. What are your thoughts? What are you leaning towards?
Yeah, the unders. Both teams, they've been pretty ordinary, and a lot of it's been their attack. If I look back even the Penrith game, they had plenty of opportunities to score the Dragons, but then since then, they scored 2 tries against the Eels, and again, I talked about earlier, I thought Eels' defense has been very ordinary, and we'll go on to that in the next game. And then they scored 2 tries against Souths, and they keep sticking with Moses Zembai at fullback, whereas attacking-wise, Tyrell Sloan is a much better attacking fullback. So while they're doing that, keeping it, and bear in mind, one of the tries they scored last week was scored the 79th minute, so the game was done and dusted. So I'm taking the unders because, again, Newcastle, you take out that game against Penrith where they were short a player and people bought into, Newcastle still scored 20 points and gave it a game when they were down a man against Penrith. But as I said, it looked like Penrith shut off a bit on that one and didn't really defend and aim up. Because then the following week, they didn't score a single try against Cronulla, and then he scored 1 try last week against Manly, which wasn't a bad try, and they did bomb a try, but they were awful in attack against a Manly team that was without Tommy Turbo, and they were at McDonald Jones Stadium on a Thursday night. So I like the unders here. Both teams do have quite a big long build-up. There's a lot of time off between their games. I think it's 8 and 9 days, respectively. So bit of a break between them. So I think they'll be fresh, and I think just let's bash each other up the middle all day. Take the unders, and we just talked about it. Try and enjoy the game. It's easy to enjoy when you're unders and it's a shit game. If you're on the overs and it's a shit game, it's fucking awful. Trust me.
I've actually found a better way to enjoy this game, and it's not to bet on it. So there's only 2 games that I haven't bet on for this round, and this is one of them. I honestly can't tell you what's going to happen. They're both playing shit. I don't really like watching either team play. I was leaning towards St. George to cover this 3.5 purely because Ben Hunt is probably the player who's probably one of the only players playing that's in form.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the coaching of the Dragons, I don't believe it's being done to the best of its ability with Mbai sitting in there and having no Sloan and having a Moan come off the bench to play hooker like that. I don't know. That's all confusing for me. The Dragons have a better team. It's just they can't put it together. Sully can be destructive. Lomax can set up a lot of points. Revalao can score them. Jack Bird's a great runner of the ball. Andrew McCulloch's not a great hooker. He just tackles. Francis Molo played State of Origin. Josh Kerr, I don't know how he's got in there, but Tarek Sims, Seward, DeBell, and all, they got a pretty strong back row, but I don't know. It's just not coming together for me. But yeah, not betting on this one, but if I had a hairy rectum sitting in front of my face that I had to lean into or pick a bet, I'm not leaning into that. I'm leaning into the Dragons minus 3.5. So avoiding hairy rectums at all costs over here.
Very wise.
But speaking of hairy rectums, it is a famous Easter Monday clash between the Parramatta Eels and the West Tigers. It used to be held near ANZ, so you can get absolutely rinsed at the Easter show, spend hundreds on rides and show bags where you easily could have got the same shit for a quarter of the price from Woolies.
Do you know the Birdie Beetle show bag? $3 now.
$3.
Mate, we complain about fuel prices. The Birdie Beetle show bag at $3. It used to be $1 when I was younger.
Oh, inflation.
Petrol prices, and Birdie Beetles. There's your campaign, boys. Political campaign. Drive down the price of Birdie Beetles, which are the shittest chocolate. I'm going to call it now as it is. It is the shittest chocolate going around. These guys rely on this 2-week window, whatever the Easter show goes for, and that keeps them afloat because nobody would fucking buy it if it was stocked in Coles all year round. Anybody who disagrees, fucking leave a comment and tell me why you think Birdie Beetle is better than. Let's go Freddo comparison. Not even fucking close.
Yeah, I haven't even tried it, to be honest.
It's a waste of time.
I'm not a big Easter show guy. Like I probably won't be for a few years till my daughter grows up a bit, but I avoid it at all costs because it's just a death trap. Like I just walk around so much. Walking's not my forte.
Yeah.
Like there are people who hit 10,000 steps a day. I probably get that a week. Walking's not my thing.
Well, it's definitely not the place for you there.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, it's just, and it's worse than sports bet, mate. I think degenerate gamblers should stay away from there because those rides, like, you know, the skill test ones, and you win a big fuck off little furry animal thing, you spend like more money on that. You better just do a same game multi and just hope it gets up and buy the fucking stand.
Definitely will. I find myself walking around just having like pancakes, like just
the food is good though. I'll give it chips on a stick.
It's expensive.
It is expensive. It's expensive potatoes.
It's steep. I got some first class potatoes at the Easter show. But yeah, and that Beetle bullshit should have invested in a long time ago. It actually reminds me of a meme that I saw today. And I think it was like, I really should have invested in property in 2010 in Sydney.
Yeah.
But I was 14, so.
It's true. It's true. I remember when I was talking about that. And yeah, because 14 years ago, I turned 18 and stuff, and no one could afford a house when they're 18. So like, you give yourself a realistic chance, like 24, 25. So let's say 6 years ago, you buy a house 6 years ago, mate. Like everyone's like, oh, it's gone up crazy. I'm like, yeah, but if you bought 20 years ago, it'd be even more. But like, there's an idea for a crypto coin, like Birdie Beetle, the crypto coin. It is a good money maker.
I'm sure it'll come out eventually.
Yeah.
But speaking of coming out, the Eels lacking a lot of depth in the backs. They've got a lot of outs. Junior Paulo's been suspended for one of the best hits you will ever see, which that's controversial. I haven't seen one person support the suspension.
No.
But he's out. Wonga Blake, the curse of the left wing, has got him. So if you line up on that left wing for Parramatta, you're guaranteed to get injured. So I wonder what the odds are for Will Penasini to get injured this week. They've got Nakore coming in. He's playing at centre. So it's gonna be difficult. But the good thing is they're coming up against the Tigers. So the Tigers, they got a shitload of changes. So Madge reacted to their 5th straight loss. So Dane Laurie's back. Stafford Toa moves back to the wing. Jackson Hastings returns from suspension. Luke Brooks moved to 6. Jock Madden moves to the bench. James Roberts is back. Oliver Gildart gets dropped. Mamalo dropped. Jacob Little and Tyron Peachy dropped, which is probably a good decision. None of these blokes have been playing very good.
No.
Gildart, he's had a lot of half opportunities, but he seems to fuck them up.
It was on the Matty John show. Seemed like a nice bloke too the other week.
Yeah. Seems like a nice English bloke, but Jimmy's had some flashes. Luke Brooks hasn't been too bad this year. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't been too bad. Jock Madden's been really good. He plays with some big dick energy, and Jackson Hastings has been solid. I'd love to see all three of them on the field at the same time, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when does Dewey come back?
That was my point. I think Para will win this game. My bet, which I talked about earlier, was Tigers over 9.5. But they will not win a game until Dewey is back. The week Dewey is named, I don't care if they're playing Penrith in Penrith, get on the Tigers, because I'm telling you, they need Dewey because that team just can't seem to gel. And I reckon you add Dewey in the centres or something, he links up with Brooks and Hastings, that team's going to look a lot better. I hope so, because I bet on Newcastle to win the wooden spoon, and I need these guys to start winning because otherwise I'm fucked. But I don't know when he's back, actually. He must be far away because I remember it was like he was missing the first like heap of rounds, but I can look it up now while you give me your. How do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think Para will win. So they're $1.07. Tigers are $9. I can't believe the Tigers are $9 and they're not the biggest outsiders of the round. Unbelievable. Disrespectful. The line is 20.5 points. Total points, it's only 41.5. So my bet for this one is purely on how these teams verse each other at the same time every single year. So this Easter Monday clash, I've looked back at previous Easter Monday clashes, and there is a shit ton of points going on. Like everyone's had a bit too much candy, too many dog shows, too much pancake. I don't know what's going on, but there is like this is the game where you want to pick a same game multi and pick like Para to score 30, 40 points, and then just nail all these try scorers. Because there's going to be a shit ton of points. Para scored 50 and then 38. Like even the Tigers can score over 20 points when they match up for this Easter Monday clash. But don't trust the Tigers at all. So I'm just taking the Parramatta Eels to score more than 30.5 points. Parramatta is one of the best attacking teams. They don't defend very well, but they can definitely pile the points on. So taking Para to score more than 30.5. Mitchell Moses to have a blinder. He loves this game as well. So let's watch Parramatta eat. How about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, as I said, Tigers over 9.5. I think Para's defense, if there is a weakness in his Para team the last few weeks, it has been that defense. It's crazy to say, like, they pumped St. George, but they leaked in 2 soft tries. And then the Titans last week, they just seemed to switch off. And with that edge, those injuries, plus Junior Paulo, that's a much more promising look for the Tigers, who, I backed them to score under 10.5 last week against Cronulla. But I think Para, as weird as it sounds, Para's defense is not as good as Cronulla's defense. So I'm backing them to get 2 tries. There's got to be some fighting in there. Pasco's gone away to Northern Territory for a holiday. Probably a good signing, as the guy seems like he's got no fucking idea how to run a club. And
he's pretty cross-eyed, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's
fit misses though. Give him that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Respect it, but he's gone away. So you watch. Maybe Maguire feels free now. You never know. Maybe Pasco's micromanaging. He doesn't like micromanaging. There's an idea. I still think they're not going to win. And the fact that that Brisbane are $10 and they're $9 is crazy. Like
disrespectful, that one. But it should be a shit ton of points. What's the weather look like for Monday?
Well, the last few weeks have been predicting rain quite a fair bit. But it seems to have gone. Let's hope so. But Monday it's meant to be cleared up. So we got rain. It's meant to be raining now. I don't know if it is in Sydney, but then till Thursday, and then basically Good Friday onwards, we're getting some sunshine.
So by Monday, CommBank drains very well.
Does, yeah.
So it's gonna be drier than my elbows. It's gonna be beautiful. My man Mitchell, captain of my fantasy team, gonna need him to step up and really knock it out of the park. But I guess that's our preview in every single game. I've got 6 out of 8 bets. Chuck those in a multi. That's $66. But really, really leaning into my best bet. I like just a recap. If you made it this far, under 40 points, South Bulldogs, Cronulla over 14.5. The Roosters to cover that 14.5 at the SCG, and then Parramatta to go absolutely wild on Monday and score over 30.5 points. $13 multi. I've got $60 on it for an $800 return. Scooping them units up, baby. Do you want to do a quick recap on what your best bets are, and we'll yeet the fuck out of here?
Yeah, so Good Friday, South Dogs under 39.5. Saints, Newcastle under 37.5. The Storm minus 6.5 against the Sharks. Tigers over 9.5 against Para. All up there, $13. Play them as singles and then do quarter stake for the multi.
Yay. Just a reminder of a shameless plug. You got to follow your boy on Dabble. I'm dropping some hot tips. The followers are growing real quick. Follow us on IG, Facebook, and join the Discord if you want to get access to all my free tips, which drop every single day. It's the NBA playoffs. So looking to make a whole lot of profit before that season ends. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you all next week.
Peace.